Good morning again, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. It is Friday. It is the last Friday of July 2017. Hopefully, you guys are rocking and rolling this summer. What does July, the end of July, mark? Well, we're 7/12 of the way done with the year. Hopefully, you're rocking and rolling your goals out for the year. It also marks the end of summer vacation for a lot of kids. Football is just around the corner. I'm excited for a lot of things because end of July marks usually when we're having our Note Mastermind group, and such is the case for next week in Cape Coral, Florida. I'm really excited to have 60 to 70 of our closest Note Mastermind members coming out, hanging out for 3 days. I've got a tremendous amount of great stuff lined up for everybody being there on some good stuff to expand their business. But today, I wanted to bring on one of our closest friends. One of our mastermind members has been a member for going on over 4+ years now. This guy has become like brother to me. He's just doing amazing things. I love bouncing ideas off of him. This guy has just taken the bull by the horns and jumped on the back and rode that bull like a horse now in the note industry. He's doing amazing things. It's the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jay Tenenbaum. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, first off, thank you for joining us. I know it's a little earlier there than it is here, so hopefully you got your coffee kicking, huh?
No, we're good. It's good.
It's good. So some people heard you. I wanted to today not really kind of go through the traditional thing, but just, two guys shooting the breeze and kind of sharing, where you started from, your background, and kind of getting rocking and rolling. So why don't you share people kind of your background and what attracted you to the note business? Or before that, let's talk about some stats. How many notes have you closed in total? Do you keep a running total of that?
Yeah, I think I'm around 213 to be exact.
How many?
213.
213. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Although today we're waiting for some bids. It could be additional 13 to 19 more.
Nice. And you bought and sold. You've also moved a bunch of REOs as well along the way. They've come along in your note deals, correct?
That the other day I sat down and thought about it. Out of 213, my portfolio, what I purchased is probably 60% notes, 40% REOs, and probably 60% of or 58% of the notes was probably the first 2 years of my business.
Right. Awesome. So why don't you share with people kind of your background and what attracted you to the note business? For
Sure.
those that don't know yet.
So I spent 20 years with a collection law practice as a principal with my wife. And we 90 to 2008. We closed the practice in 2008. We're still happily married. We survived working together. I guess I'll characterize that I've been in debt all my life, not personally, but chasing my life. I founded another we buying judgment liens with a non-attorney partner from 2009 and 12 we're buying judgment liens in California, executing on real property. So kind of a segue from just pure debt collection to real estate and debt. And then in 2013, just to be exact, met up with Scott, had the opportunity, obviously, to just transition from chasing a different debt instrument, from debt to real estate, judgment liens to notes. And it was an easy transition, and I guess, it's been almost 4 years, and I haven't looked back, and I'm loving every minute of it.
That's awesome. Now, one of the great things about you is you just jumped in and started buying notes. And so you started off literally going from, I think your first transaction was 3 notes, and you guys went to 20, and then you kind of skyrocketed there. You want to talk a little bit about that and how you kind of implemented things as you went?
Sure. A mentor prior to you used to say, shoot, ready, aim. And so taking that opportunity, I bought 3 notes in January of 14. I had an opportunity from the same hedge fund to buy 20 more about 2 weeks later. I did that. So in the 2014, I bought 29 total, and basically resold all but like 6 of them by the end of 2000. So it started in 2015. I'm like, great. I doubled my money on what I bought in 2000, but I was practically starting over because I had no inventory. We bought 100 assets in 2015, bought 78 last year. This year, working on larger projects, positioning ourselves with some capital, yes, but just different sourcing that'll be more of a, like we've been doing, a forward flow where we're could just, get into a rhythm. Like I said, out of 213 notes, I think I've only worked with like 13, 14 sellers. I keep liquidating their portfolio, so I got to find another source. I think out of those 13, about 150 is two sources, which is pretty much dried up at this point. So this year we've bought only about 6, although again, I think that by the end of the year, we'll still probably be more between 50 to 75 anyway. Crushing the last half of the year. We've done a lot of liquidating the inventory that we had in 2006. We bought 15 and 16 pretty much liquidated in this year, and just kind of resetting the table, call it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that happens a lot. You have invested, you buy a chunk, you go back and you work on that a little bit. Then you move forward and buy some more, and you got to go back and work on it. And you guys were in such an acceleration of buying and taking stuff down. It's going to take a little bit of time. I mean, I've gone through that. I think every successful note investor has done that at a point. And it's a good thing to have, but it also kind of makes you feel like, oh, do I need to be buying some stuff? You know what I mean? We get so used to acquisition. You got to make sure in time to focus on the workout aspect of your business, right, Jay?
That's definitely correct.
Yeah, and you've also, let's face it, you've also had some stuff in the last 6 months where you moved. That's kind of a big thing. You've got some family illness issues that's had to take priority on some things too. So, but you've done a great job though. What I really admire about what you've done is you've relied a lot on your vendors, and you've created new vendors that literally help take over things of your business that wasn't really your expertise, whether it's finding a good, owner financing not sure a realtor, but an attorney to help out with that, or an MLO, or finding a workout company and helping kind of feed them deals to help you out with your portfolio, correct?
True. It's funny because in the end of 2012, we sold our lived in California for like 12 years. And that's started with some of the capital that had started the note business in 2013. And ever since, we've been just renting, and pretty much my wife is kind of not a nomad necessarily. She's not, she gets bored with stuff. So we've been moving practically once a year, in and around California. And then, we're in the same area, and then now in Arizona. But the point I'm trying to make is, when I was buying the first 23 assets of my life, I was actually moving my house again. So it seems like if I'm buying, or if I'm not moving, I'm not buying.
That's funny.
I think we bought a lot of stuff, transitioned a lot of stuff when we moved to Arizona as well. I'm always a kind of a person that just, has got a lot on my plate, and I'm always moving forward. My mother-in-law, fortunately, is battling cancer, and my wife is traveling back to California, and I've been, manning the house and being house dad, which is fine. Opportunity to kind of step back, because I am a workaholic, but it's been a in disguise. I mean, I've gotten to spend some more time with my family on a different level. And I appreciate my wife when she's back more, I guess. Absence does make the heart grow fonder, I will tell you that. So yeah, I mean, creating vendors, obviously you've got to set up your systems and processes. You ideally would want to say, I've got a vendor life, but they will, as I've said before, in the service business, servicing company can never service all their clients all the time. And when things happen, and you try to be a loyal client, a loyal customer, but when things, you need to move on. So I'm not always searching for the other holy grail, but I don't look past the opportunities that come before me.
You've got a really great way of saying next if something pops up. Next. Okay, so what's the next thing I need to solve? Or let's move on to the next source. Or let's just, boom, boom, boom. Let's really knock things out of the park. Now, your business has evolved over the last couple of years, and I'm gonna make a note here. If you're watching this on live stream, feel free to ask the questions below. If you like to ask a question to Jay and things like that, do that below in the comments. Also, if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to leave comments or questions below in the videos. We'll make sure you get those answered too for you. But if you could go back to when you started as a note investor in 2012, what's the number one thing that you would tell yourself? Hey, if you could go back into yourself, the younger version of Jay Tenenbaum, and share one thing with yourself, what would that be?
Oh God.
I know. I caught you off guard this morning, buddy.
You did. Well, again, when you're a shoot, ready, aim kind of person, you don't really look back and go, what did I do different?
Right.
I guess make sure that you have, as you build your business, the one thing would be make sure if you're going to be partners with other people, really define what the roles, whose lane is what, and make sure that they bring their skill set to the table. I am so blessed right now with my partners with AZP. We in a very short time have developed a really good rhythm. They my two newest partners, Kim Anderson and Patty Hoagland, are amazing people.
Great ladies.
They
Great
surprise me
ladies.
daily with what they bring to the table and what they do. And I think I surprise them with some of the things that some of the workouts they're like, you did that, what? So I think we it's a nice arrangement. So yeah, it's been working out really well. But yeah, I think the one thing I would do is say, okay, make sure you don't know what you don't know. So you set your vision, your mission, your business plan in pencil, but understand that if you're going to execute on that or until you revise it, that you have the people in place, whether they're your partners or your vendors, that you have those people in place to execute. That's
a total great suggestion. I mean, partnerships are always, it's kind of like the pendulum thing. Sometimes the focal point is closer to you or closer to them, depending on what's going on, but you got to make sure and define that. And that's really hard sometimes, depending on how well you know the person or don't.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to know them well. You just got to make sure they have the skill set, that they're complementary to your skill set. They're complementary to what your goals and objectives are. I think in a previous mastermind, maybe it was the last one in Austin, you made a comment about, when we were doing our SWOT analysis, you maximize your strengths and delegate your weaknesses, whether that's a vendor or your partner. But if it's your partner, make sure your partner can supplement your weaknesses, because if you both have the same skill sets, you'll do your strengths great, but you'll still fall down on your weaknesses.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You've got to identify things and let things rock and roll for you on that, as far as, especially when you're adding new levels or trying to expand your business, because you can only do so many deals yourself. And I think a lot of, not just real estate entrepreneurs in general, have a hard time of learning to delegate. I'm a big believer that most people can handle probably around 20 note deals themselves, and then they're too bogged down doing everything to keep expanding and raising capital. What would your opinion be of that?
Oh, I don't know. For me, it may be a little more than 20, only because from my debt collection days,
Yep.
has 6,000 open files. I know volume. I know how to manage volume. I understand volume, but volume is a component that's not everybody's cup of tea. So I think everybody has their own bandwidth as far as what they're capable of doing. The thing about this business, though, is that there is so much ability to outsource that you can scale up. If you were to do it by yourself, scale up faster than other business per se, because there are so many vendors out there. You just got to be able to know who they are, what they are, where they are, and be able to manage them. I mean, there are times where people say, well, I want to learn this business from you, like my JD partners, et cetera. And I say, well, that's great. But really all you're learning is well, not all you're learning, but what you learn the most is just I'm a glorified traffic controller.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You're managing. You're working like not the quarterback of your team, but more like the head coach,
Right.
or the general manager. It would be a better way. You're putting people in place to get deals to run and kind of, focused on that aspect of things and staying in your lanes. If you're trying to do too much, you have things that are going to fall through the cracks, or I guess you could say you're spinning too many plates. You're eventually going to have something fall down, right?
Very good analogy. Yes.
What questions? Do we have questions from anybody out there?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. So, okay, Jay. So you were a great networker. When you're going out in events, you're out talking to people, networking. You want to give some advice to effective networking when you're out when you're at an event or doing or meetups or things like that, or expos? You have any tips to people out there?
Sure. Kind of a broad. I'll answer the kind of in a broad-based sector. what I've said before, I have with a debt collection background, I had a network at trade conventions as far as picking up clients, my collection agency clients that I built my law practice with. So I had that prior experience in itself. But I'm not necessarily one that establishes in a networking event establishes a deep connections with people. Yet, as you've heard me say on other venues, when I'm dealing with borrowers, somehow I make that connection. One of the things that I think is important is to get out there. Hiding in your hotel room doesn't make any sense. Your best always your best opportunities are the small gatherings, the one-on-ones. Go invite somebody that you don't really know for a cup of coffee in the bar or Starbucks that's on site or whatever. In the room itself, just introduce yourself. I think we've all been to those seminars of hey, where are you from? What can I help you with? Hi, my name is Joe. Those who sit there and want to sell and vomit their expertise in their deals turn people off. It's a small setting. You don't want to be. You may get into a deep conversation with somebody because you have an immediate connection, immediate attraction. Other than that, be respectful of everyone else's time. Get their information. Have a follow-up chat at a different time, because you want to be, fill your dance card. You want to get to as many people as you can. There are some other events that actually give you the opportunity to set up meetings before you go. Those are phenomenal, and things like that. But that's kind of really, everybody's got their own style. I enjoy the opportunity to speak at those those type of events. I'd rather be the hunted than the hunter. It just, it's nice. I got to tell you, I was at Paper Source in April, and based upon, doing the note camps and everything with Scott and things like that, I was truly flattered is the right word. I had several people come up to me and said, I've heard you virtually speaking somewhere. I wanted to meet you. I was blown away and flattered by that.
It's a good feeling when you're making waves and doing things that you want to do, and really working business and people recognizing that's always an exciting thing, because you're giving. That's the thing. One of the great things I think about this industry, the more you give, the more you share, the more you get back tenfold. You know what I mean?
I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Now let's talk a little bit about business stuff. What is your if you had to throw your business into kind of an executive summary kind of way, like what's your bread and butter aspect of what you're focused
on? Bottom line, the mission hasn't changed. It's creating that cash flow, whether it be buying occupied notes and doing loan mods, to buying contract for deeds or REOs and turning them into seller finance. It's the same end result. You're getting the cash flow. You're either keeping a borrower in the home or you're creating affordable housing for somebody else. I think that's always been my why. I kind of got into this business when I went to your Note Buying for Dummies class in August of 2013. I wanted to get into the real estate business, and I thought notes was just a different acquisition strategy. I'd be a fix and flipper like everybody else. This would just be a different way of acquiring an asset, because I didn't want to go door knock like in yellow letters and things like they teach the flipping shows teach you how to do. Like I said, I don't want to hunt. I just kind of, I guess at the end of the day, I don't want to hunt. And so, but as I've evolved, like I said, I built my law practice on cash flow through, wage garnishments and stip payments and things like that over the years. So I just was familiar with that, and took it to a different level with regards to, when I set up a wage garnishment, which that's involuntary, or a stip payment with a debtor, that's a different story, a credit card, a open invoice, whatever it is. But with borrowers, it's their home, and we've all been homeowners and we all understand the importance of that. So keeping them in their home has been one of my biggest whys, and creating affordable housing for others is the second why. Having said that, though, I'll tell you that I'm still shocked and amazed at how many borrowers just haven't figured out that your mortgage is a priority. The homework is too easy for saying I'm not making my payment this month because I had something else crop up, and So I think I've been a little less patient with some borrowers than I used to be.
That happens. That definitely happens and stuff like that, for the most part. We got a question from our good buddy Steve Strout in Northern California. And Steve asked, what's he asked the question?
What's the difference between a dismissed and discharge of bankruptcy, or BK, I think that's right, when considering purchasing a note?
So, did you hear that, Jay?
Yeah, I saw his post on Basecamp the other day, and I meant to respond. Okay, so a dismissed bankruptcy is in effect that as the bankruptcy never happened. They filed, it got dismissed, it's got basically just blow it off like nothing ever happened. A discharged bankruptcy, and I'm assuming you're thinking of a Chapter 7. You got to remember there are two components to a mortgage. There is the debt, and there is the lien. Remember, you've got a mortgage and you've got a promissory note. The promissory note is discharged in bankruptcy. You can't go after a deficiency balance. You can't do a wage guard. You can't do anything about the UPB with regard to a discharged bankruptcy. But unless there is some effort done in bankruptcy to remove your lien, which doesn't really happen in first very often, if at all, your lien interest, your security interest in the property still exists. You can still go out and enforce that all day long. I still, even with my legal expertise, defer to my attorneys even though bankruptcy is federal, nationwide, the laws are somewhat uniform nationwide. I still defer to my attorneys, meaning if a borrower is discharged in a Chapter 7, do I still have to go into bankruptcy court and get permission to go foreclose? Sometimes in certain instances, the discharge in of itself is that validation and you can just go ahead and foreclose, but consult your attorney first. It's not something that I would be too concerned about when I'm buying a note. It's just different. You just may have a little more expensive. You've got to go in and get bankruptcy permission, which is called a motion for stay, motion for relief of stay.
Good explanation, Jay. Good explanation. Hopefully it helps Steve definitely out there for you. What are the questions? Got any other questions for anybody?
That's it.
They're just listening. They're just listening
Yeah.
to the man, the myth, the legend, taking it all in, baby, taking it all in. That's good stuff. So let's talk about a couple things. One, you have ended up with, and I think we all do, having your own kind of REO portfolio from the stuff that you end up foreclosing or taking cash or keys or deed and lose from, correct?
Yes.
And your biggest goal on that is to either get them sold or get them refinanced by offering owner finance, or does it depend on the numbers?
Good question. So yes, my REO portfolio was built on taking back a few with Polaris. Obviously, we've been maintaining higher than industry average with regards to loan mods, and even deed and lose. We got more deed and lose than I would have expected. But as far as my foreclosure opportunities have been probably over my course, probably maybe less than 20%.
Wow.
But you do end up taking back properties here and there. That coupled with when we started buying the contract for deeds, our REO portfolio grew rather substantially. So then as we seized the opportunity in buying contract for deeds, et cetera, now we've got a bunch of REOs on our portfolio. What do we do? And that's where you don't be intimidated about, well, I don't have my process in place to handle this stuff. Seize the opportunity if it makes sense, but turn on a dime as to what you're going to do with it. That obviously gave rise to our seller financing platform, which then said, okay, if I've got an REO portfolio that's growing, what am I going to do this? Get a strategy and execute on that strategy. I could have very easily said, you know what, what I buy, what I take back in foreclosure, I'm going to fix and flip. That's great. I'm not a fix and flip guy. I don't have that experience. Nor
do you want to be doing it in like 15 or 20 states though, too, right?
Correct. Absolutely. Good point. And so the seller that gave rise to the seller financing platform, which in turn said, okay, I'm going to do seller financing. How do I consistently do it bigger, better, brighter, faster than yesterday? Which I think we still work on it, but I think it's in a pretty good spot right now.
Mm-hmm.
You had Jason Powell on the other night. He's been awesome. He was referred to me by a guy that I know in Florida. And Jason's just been fantastic. And so, yeah, with seller financing, having the inventory is the hardest part to others, with regards to if I'm going to be a set up a seller financing platform, seller financing platform could fail with others because they don't have the inventory. If you start with the inventory, the rest of it's easy.
Yeah.
You work on your marketing to attract potential borrowers. That is, for us, has been the biggest challenge that we've rectified. But past that, I've got the inventory, I've got the back end, Jason and Ben Fredericks that I use for my MLO. That's down pat. It's just, generate leads are easy to generate. You get a Google Voice number, a bandit sign out there, Craigslist ad, you get people blowing up your phone wanting the property. Getting them to close, getting them interested in closing is been what we've been working on. And I think we've kind of got that down to a decent science. So that's what we do as far as maintaining our REOs. And as we ran the numbers, we realized that whether you're seller financing to an owner occupant or even an investor, your numbers 3 out of 4 times or more will just work out better than if you crunch the numbers to fix and flip. While it's still a viable option, you just find out that, gee, I can get 2%. Most of the time, I can get more return on a seller finance than I would on a fix and flip.
That's because you are finding people that will that will move in. They're glad for a property. They'll come in and do the paint and carpet and a little bit of fix-ups for you for the most part. They're glad to have the opportunity.
It starts with that. It all depends on the condition of your property.
Sure.
If it's a property that's habitable, livable, then those are easy. Let's say, and if you're in the low balance space, you're in an asset for, 15, 20 grand, and it's easy to put someone in there for, $30,000 to $40,000. You've got a property that's probably worth 60 if it was fixed up, but so you're putting them in there for 40,000 because they're going to do the fix up. So you're doubling your spread is double what you're into the property for over time. Then you're working with them on credit repair, et cetera, to refinance you out rather than resell the asset or hold it for longer, which is always, again, cash flow is king. If it needs a little work, you got to put a little bit of work into it. And even when we do rehab something, we're not always reticent to say we're going to rehab to fix and flip. We've done some really tremendous deals where we've done a rental type rehab and then got top dollar on the seller finance side.
Nice. It's extremely nice. We had a couple questions from people out there.
Yeah. So Laura Blanc, she asked, she's a love of the seller financing of REOs. How are you working around the laws about the number allowed?
Dodd-Frank, who's Dodd-Frank? Who's Mr. Dodd? Who's Mr. Frank? What I did is real simple. I decided early on that I was going to be Dodd-Frank compliant rather than Dodd-Frank. Am I subjected to Dodd-Frank, or how do I get around Dodd-Frank? And what I did was I had a deal in Florida, and I had a buddy of mine that used to do, back in the 70s, used to do a lot of seller financing. So I reached out to him, who referred me to Jason. Jason, in turn, could write the paper, but when you're doing owner occupied, which is where Dodd-Frank comes into play, you need a loan originator, someone that basically, what you're doing with Dodd-Frank as far as compliance is determining that the borrower, through their debt ratio, can afford the deal you're putting them into. It's not about their credit. It's not about their income. It's just about, can they afford the deal you're putting them into? And so while Jason didn't know anybody per se, actually Dan Satofsky referred me to Ben Fredericks, a loan originator in Florida that he used. And so I just got on the phone with the two of those guys, Ben and Jason, married the two of them and said, go. And so if I've got an owner occupied asset, I send an email to both of them saying, here's my deal. Ben starts the ball rolling. When he gets the compliance documentation signed off, he kicks it to Jason, and Jason writes the paper. The answer to your question, Laura, don't even mess with it. Just hire yourself Ben and Jason, and now you're Dodd-Frank compliant, and you don't have to worry about how many or what you're doing. You're getting out in front of it. You're not letting Dodd-Frank get to you.
Amen to that, brother. You're using the right people. And Dan Zatowski, I think, just said hi too, just to join us as well. Yeah. Good morning, Big Dan. But Dan asked a good question. I think you covered on it briefly, just kind of ran through it, but a really powerful thing for everybody. Dan asked, how are you finding your buyers for your borrowers for seller finance buyers? So so I think it's a two-part. How are you going out and finding people that want seller financing? And then secondly, are you selling any of that paper off after a period of time?
Okay, first question first. In the present marketplace, there are no shortage of borrowers. People find you, even if you aren't out there marketing your properties, people find you. Usually it's the surrounding neighbors. But you put a Craigslist ad out, you put a Google bandit sign on the property, like the Echo Streams and the harbors and stuff like that. You'll get people. I've got one in Tennessee that's probably that the city wants to condemn, and I get probably an inquiry a day on that property, and I actually got it sold. But it's really not that hard to find the borrowers. The key, the challenge that we've had is you get a phone call, they're interested in the property. If they go out the property by themselves, it's tough to close them by themselves. So we've worked on getting our property pres guys out there to meet and greet, so they're actually walking through with somebody, and you got to get that feedback. We've used realtors. You're paying a little more in commissions, but the realtors, they're not good to market it as seller financing, but they're good to bring a buyer to the table once they know what you're offering and can keep maintain the deal to close it. What else have we done? I mean, that's pretty much, I mean, you want to put, pictures of the property on your website and say, hey, if you really like the property, here's the pictures first. If you really like the property still, then I'll arrange for you to go out and see the property. Most of the time, the people that call you know the area, know the property, know the condition, and aren't intimidated by it. As far as the backside, it's a work in progress. Ideally, we're looking to have the borrowers refinance us out. On the seller finance paper, it's not like the reselling a performing note. There's guys out there that only pay 65% of the note, which really doesn't pencil out much. So pretty much you're working with the borrower longer term to get them qualified. The challenge there is they're happy making their 9% payment because the monthly payment is something they can afford, and they don't want to spend the time to do credit repair. But there are ways that we're working on right now to make it kind of seamless, to where I think if I was to really develop it and create another revenue stream, whatever it would be, I would set up my own credit repair company and do it for them. I'd obviously have a self-interest in doing that because they won't help themselves.
It helps you in the long run getting a bigger payoff too, beginning as close to full payoff as you're seeing too, right? Versus taking a big discount. So
Dan comments, it's about the income, which brings your DTI into the ratios.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You don't want your borrowers to have more than a 40% DTI ratio for the most part.
That's what Ben does. Yes.
What is DTI ratio?
Debt to income.
Gotcha.
So if you make $5,000 a month and you're to make sure your mortgage is affordable, you wouldn't want your mortgage payments and everything involved be more than $2,000 a month.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's kind of where the debt to income aspect, but 40% is kind of magical. It's a magical number.
And you extend the term if you need to get the debt ratios in place.
Yeah, because then it drops the payment down.
Correct.
So it's different between doing a 15 versus a 30 versus a 40.
Right.
Perry asked, how do you find tenant borrowers for your REO properties?
Well, we just kind of covered that. Yeah, it's basically the same question.
I think you asked while you were explaining.
That's okay.
Yeah.
What are the questions we have? Dan asked, or no?
Dan commented.
Did Casey ask something down there?
Casey asked, what's the difference between a deed in lieu and a contract for deed?
Oh, okay. A bit of a difference.
Big difference.
Big difference.
I think he's one of our newer students. He just bought the note buying.
Oh, that's right. Note buying blueprint recently. Yeah. So let's talk about the difference between a deed in lieu and a contract for deed. Jay, why don't you start with a contract for deed?
Okay, contract for deed is similar. I use the analogy as like a car loan, where when you're buying the contract for deed from your seller, you're getting title passed to you from your seller, unlike a note where you're just getting an assignment of the note and the borrower still owns the property. When you're buying a contract for deed, you either have possession because the property is vacant, or you need to take legal action to get possession back to you. When you have title and possession, you now own an REO.
That's correct. And let's talk about a deed in lieu.
Deed in lieu is you're buying and you buy or you're owning a note. The borrower still owns the property, and rather than foreclosing on him, the borrower basically says, "Fine, I quit. That's it. No shit, I quit," and gives you the property back through basically saying, "I'm giving you back your mortgage, and you're going to relieve me of any further obligation on that mortgage. And now I get possession and title and ownership of that property back.
I'm going to give the deed back to the bank in lieu of them foreclosing on me.
Correct. In lieu of any responsibilities or any obligation, monetary obligation that I may incur.
Yeah, you're forgiving me of any obligation, forgive me and coming back after the debt. So,
right.
Hopefully it helps Casey. They're totally two different things in different scenarios, but a lot of people do confuse them with the whole deed in the name for it. One's an exit strategy, one's really kind of an acquisition strategy or an asset that you're buying. Because we've seen a big influx, especially in the last 3 years, of contract for deeds hitting the market. Would you agree to that, Jay?
Yes. Because you've got a couple of big sellers who are getting out of the marketplace. And that's what, it took me a while as they started flooding the market going, what are these things? And finally, it took me a long time to get my head around what they were and who owned what and who was on first. And then, once we started buying them, they just become, again, it gave rise to our seller financing platform. And
that's what a lot of these banks or at least funds were doing. They're buying big bulk portfolios of REOs, sub $75,000 valued assets that they couldn't go get traditional financing on. They offered up a contract for deed to the borrowers in the states it was legal to do, so that they can get somebody in there, start paying them in cash flow on a loan that's 3 or 4 times what they paid for the asset. It's still market value, with the opportunity that if they don't pay, they don't stay. It's more of an eviction versus a long extended foreclosure. So it makes it more desirable for them. They evict and do the whole thing all over again. Let's get another borrower in there, pay some down payment, get them on a 9 to 10% interest rate, keep them in the property. They're paying utilities, they're paying other things, and keeping the property updated.
It's interesting because one of the things that we have been working on ourselves is when you're own the property, when you're buying notes and you're taking it back as an REO, that's just an exit strategy we've talked about. When you own the REOs, you want to be clear again in your business plan. What do you want to do? You could whiteboard the following. Do I want to offer seller financing to borrowers? Do I want to do lease options? Do I want to do straight rentals? There's a million reasons, pros and cons of all that stuff. Buy and hold rental guys like the appreciation because you're still getting the same cash flow. Lease option guys saying, hey, I'm giving a borrower pseudo home ownership opportunities, but I'm still a rental. The contract for deed opportunity gave rise because the sellers said, hey, I like the idea that I still have home ownership, that I still have title to my own property. It's a shorter opportunity. And what's interesting is with Patty and Kim being from the REO broker side of life, they took a look at what I had developed, where I had developed my seller financing platform, and took one look at it and said, well, seller financing is all great and good, but what happens if your borrower decides to turn your property into a meth lab? Now you've got, different obligations, because then you have, and so what we've actually done is in certain states that are favorable to us, we actually are in our seller financing are giving them a mortgage. Now we won't do it in Alabama because you got a year redemption, but other states than that, it just starts to make more sense to minimize your liability and risk, even if you've got to spend a little more time foreclosing. Because, and I said, we're doing it in states where the difference between foreclosing on a mortgage that we're giving them or doing it's not necessarily an eviction, but doing whatever legal action is necessary to retain possession is not that much longer or any more expensive.
You're just taking what the market gives you and being smart about it. Yeah, I mean, that's a thing. Like Alabama, Minnesota, they've got year-long redemption periods after you foreclose. So not the best thing to be buying, and okay, I've got to hold on to this for a year before I really do anything with it for the most part, right?
Right.
So let's talk about where do you see the market going? Let's see if you've got a crystal ball for everybody out there. Where is the note business going, or where is Jay Tenenbaum going the next 12 to 24 months?
I have my opinion.
I love your opinion. Everybody's got one like an asshole, which is great.
Exactly. Everybody's got a button a seat. Here's the deal. We have accidentally come across some tremendous REO sourcing right now. We still want to buy notes. We've got an opportunity to buy through a HUD relationship access to notes. So we've got really bookends, two tremendous sellers with deal flow that is not stopping anytime soon. The challenge is this: you've got sellers of notes that, and I'm not grousing that the pricing is too high, but it is. And what my point that I'm trying to make is, if I'm having to buy a note at 70 cents of value and I can buy an REO at 70 cents of value, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I mean, guys, I want to buy notes, but you're not making, the marketplace is not letting me buy notes because I've got the opportunity. I'm not shut out. I've got capital to deploy. I'm going to spend my money. I'd love to spend it with you, but you don't want you, but you, and I think from a seller's perspective, they're not as, it's not that they're greedy. They didn't buy right. And so they're wanting to sell it in pricing that they've got to get to make it work, and they just don't work. I think your sellers are still more enamored with the ARV values of these notes than the as is values. And when you've got to spend the time and money to foreclose, you can't be buying apples and apples between an REO and a mortgage. I think that irrespective of that, there will be a market correction in the next 12 to 24 months. Not depending on who you talk to. Some people say it could be worse than 2008. It doesn't have to be. It has to be there. It'll make the ability to buy notes for getting back in the line, because I still love to buy notes, but when the pricing is the same as an REO, I'm going to seller finance my REOs instead. So we'll be trying to market correction. I think if you are buying any type of asset with the fix and flip, be careful, because when that market correction happens, even every night you're going to lose. Your margins are going to take a hit, because you're having. I'll tell you where the notes that we have bought this year. I'll shift my strategy. Before, my debt collection mentality was, hey, buying a low value asset, let's say, and I buy it for 10 grand, a guy for $1. My debt collection guy mentality says, sure, that's a 30% return. I'm all over it. Now, when we're buying, we started buying more higher value assets anyway. And when we model them out with the pricing that we have to pay for this stuff, I'm basically as a litigation approach to it saying, Mr. Borrower, I've got to keep you close to how we modeled it. As we modeled it, we'll make money, but I got to keep you close to how we modeled it. And if you can't do it, I'm going to have to take your house. It's a shift for me and my personality and my approach. But the other thing is, because of my experience, that when you put that much backstop, as in the threat of foreclosure or the actual commencement foreclosure, et cetera, your borrowers will come to the table with, there's where the borrower says, I can't do it. If you just go about your and work your asset aggressively, they'll come up with the money, the ability when they have to do it, because they can. They don't think they can. So, the won'ts are, hey, I'm just gonna, fight you to, because that's just my mentality.
Yeah, we see that pretty regularly. Either once you hold their feet to the fire, and if it's not too much of a stretch, it's amazing they'll find extra money, or they'll finally reach out to their family or friends or liquidate things to be able to come up with and take care of the payments to stay in their house. It's just that many borrowers have been living really payment free for a couple of years, and you've got to kind of almost shake them awake and say, listen, you've had your freebie time now. Now it's time to pay. You've got to make up something. I may be coming at you for the full 2 years, but I'm serious at this point now, versus the other funds, the other owners may have been lackadaisical, may have never gotten around to it because they're just so big and kind of cumbersome, where you're a lot more agile, mobile, and hostile, or to be able to work something out. That makes sense? Is that what you're basically saying, Jay?
Yes.
Good. What other questions are we getting from people out there? That's it? Okay. Awesome. Well, hey, Jay, you got big plans this weekend?
Tonight's date night. So that's immediate plans. Don't really have much, just enjoying the 105-degree weather, although it hasn't been too bad. It's, I'm not going to let the heat intimidate me. The kids just gone back to school early, get back to school in July, so they just got back this week. So we're kind of just settling into all that, and it's all good.
Good stuff, buddy. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you taking time on your Friday to join me. I know it's kind of last minute for you, but really thank you. I know a lot of people out there got we got a lot of great comments and a lot of joins and stuff like that. So thank you guys that were asking questions. Once again, if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below in the videos, and we'll make sure and get those answered for you. Jay, you want to throw out there, or actually what we could do is actually put your contact information in the comments, where you want to share people your website and how they can get a hold of you if they want to talk to you more?
Sure.
You want to share that?
Sure. So my phone number is 714-458-6317. Email is JAYAZP, that's Adam Zebra Paul Capital.com, and the website is www.azpcapital.com. And I answer my phone, I answer my emails, and you through us really easy through our website.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jay. A lot of people saying thanks for joining us there. Great nuggets. And hopefully we see you next weekend, but I understand if you can't make it out to Cape Coral with everything. All right, brother?
Robert, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. All right, guys, go out and make some stuff happen. Hopefully to help answer some questions for you, gave you some insight on things to think about for your note business and the evolving aspect of it. Jay's in a different place than he was 3-4 years ago. And our businesses are constantly changing. And I know that's kind of frustrating. Like, oh, I just learned something. Now I got to change things. Or I just got this down and now I got to tweak it a little bit. That's the ebb and flow of the economy. That's the ebb and flow of the housing markets with things. Take advantage of where you can. As he said, fire, ready, aim. Take action, make things happen, and you'll be better prepared. So when those changes do make, you can pivot very easily because you've got your things in place and get rock and roll. And Jay, over his hundreds of deals, has done a great job evolving and adapting and kind of picking brains, I would say, for the most part. Like, how did you fix that, or how did you solve that, and let's fix that. Does that sound right, Jay?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Well, everybody have a great weekend. We will see you Monday, and go out and have some fun and make some things happen. See you guys at the top.